Okay, so welcome to the first video Bobcat meeting. Since this is the last meeting of the month, we will have it in video plus IRC format, and whoever feels comfortable on IRC, we can discuss the topic on IRC. Else, we can do it on video. So it's as per convenience. So let's start with announcements. Okay, so first is the Xena extended maintenance. So we were in the phase of transitioning Xena to extended maintenance. We proposed a patch last week. I mean, John proposed a patch last week. We did review it. We faced some challenges with um some changes that the release team has issues with, but finally, yeah, there is a +2 from it. And I was thinking like release team eventually merges these patches, so not to bother them too much. But if they don't do it by today, then I can ping someone tomorrow, because this was supposed to be last week. So we also have a final Xena release, and after that merges, we will transition Xena to extended maintenance, and after that we won't be having any more Xena releases. I will update IRC also. Put down the links, and yeah, we can move to the next one. I think there are no doubts or concerns with this. I don't see anything. So next is Rocky and Stein EOL. So we decided during the PTG that we will be transitioning Stein and Rocky to EOL because other projects have already done it, like Nova Neutron. So it doesn't make sense for us to keep those branches if it's not compatible with other projects. So John Bernard proposed the patches for Rocky and Stein. And I noticed one thing while reviewing them, that the hash with Rocky EM is different from the hash with Rocky EOL. So because we merged some patches in between, but I thought like, so I wasn't sure like if the EOL will be just a tag or it will be a new release, and there will be a difference between the EM tag and the EOL tag. Like if someone uses the EM, they will have a different functionality, and with EOL they will have a different functionality. My concern basically was like after extended maintenance, we said we won't be having any new releases, and will this EOL act as a new release for Rocky or
So,
Stein?
so no, it's not a release. It's just a tag. And yeah, I think the right thing to do is to have it at the current head, because those are things that we as a team have approved into the branch, even though there's not going to be a release. So then that way, people can reconstruct the branch from the tag if they need to, exactly as it is when we delete it.
Okay. Yeah, that was pretty much my concern. So
yeah, I think that their tooling is set up so that it can distinguish the EOL tags from a release number. So it won't initiate the release process.
oh, okay. Yeah, then that should be good. I will review that after the meeting. And yeah, thanks, Fran, for clarifying that. Okay, next announcement is a problem with our OpenStack docs job with the numbering we started using, like 2023.1. So I read it in the TC meeting update. Uh, yeah, there is a mail for it. So basically, when they tried to generate the documents for the 2023.1, I think there was a problem and no project was visible in the official OpenStack docs. uh, I think it links to the release note and also the installation docs. And you can go to the links I have pasted in the Etherpad. So if you go to the Z one, you will be able to see all the projects, but in the Antelope one, you won't be able to see anything. So they have noticed this as an example, but there might be other docs issue as well. So they created an Etherpad, and if any of us find something, then we can also add it to that Etherpad. Like this is a potential doc issue with the numbering. So yeah, keep an eye on the docs. Like if you see any weird behavior in Antelope or Bobcat, then we can flag that. Okay, next up is so again from the TC updates, Nova team observed a lot of detach volume failures in their job. There isn't any patch reference or a job failure mentioned. It's just a pointer to the meeting logs in the TC. I think Dan Smith commented that they were having a lot of issues like this. We can discuss with the Nova team, but yeah, I think I wanted to highlight this. Like Nova team was observing a lot of detach issues in their jobs.
This was Ceph jobs, right?
I'm not really sure because they haven't linked anything. Just they said like they were facing it. Uh,
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's. They suspect it might be resource related. So they're because the Cirrus something about the Cirrus image is pretty sparse. So they may experiment with a different guest image to use in DevStack and see if that makes a difference. They're not shy about telling us if they suspect that it's a Cinder issue, so they haven't got to that point yet. But it would be if somebody has time to look, it might be good to take a look. And Eric, you might be right. It might be happening on the Ceph jobs because they use more resources.
Well, I see the date on the link there. I was thinking, so the Nova guys raised a new issue yesterday, and the basic takeaway is that we need to get the Ceph jobs running on Jammy, and they're not working yet. So I was thinking this was related to that, but that's a whole different thing. But I'm going to be helping them in the DevStack plugin Ceph stuff to try to sort out what I can there.
yeah, I just wanted the team to be aware, and as Brian said, like if they won't shy away from letting us know, like there is some fixing that needs to be done. So yeah, but yeah, keep an eye on any new bugs opened or any IRC message that they say, like uh, related to gate failures. Okay, lastly, I have some upcoming events. So this cycle might be pretty long, but we have a few events coming up. So first one is the milestone one, and we don't have a lot for milestone one, but I thought like the DB changes proposed by Stephen would be a good target. I think I took up the task of reviewing them, and I was in the process, but I got distracted. But I'll get back to it. The last I saw, like two patches were in merge conflict. Uh, so maybe I can talk to Stephen to update them. Uh, and this time, yeah, I will take less time to review it, so it doesn't get too much conflict again. And I will just add also. I'm just copy pasting this time because it will take more time to write the whole thing. So the next upcoming thing is the mid-cycle one. So I added it to the release schedule, and I think I discussed in the Cinder team as well the date 30th May, and there weren't any major conflicts with that date. And yeah, so I will prepare an Etherpad. We still have a month time, so I will prepare an Etherpad, and we can add topics to that. Um, okay, finally we have the spec freeze, and it's again in 2 months. Like we have uh, 2 months time to review all the specs, but these are the open specs I see for Antelope. There are others also, but I think these were the ones we discussed majorly. Others were like leftovers from past releases. I think these were the latest ones proposed. So yeah, if you get some time, you can take a look at the open specs. And yeah, that's
I had a question about the mid cycle. I think the 30th is Tuesday, or am I looking at the wrong calendar?
is yeah. Sorry, it was I think 31st.
Okay, just let it. So you mean Wednesday as usual? Okay.
Yeah, 31st. Sorry, I think I saw the wrong date or
When is the mid cycle? Sorry, I didn't catch the dates.
it's 31st May. Uh,
Okay, thank you.
yeah, on the release it is correct. I noted it down wrong. So yeah, as Ben said, it will be on 31st May. It's a Wednesday. We will have 1 hour overlapping with our usual center meeting and 1 hour extra. So 2 hour meeting on that day, 1400 to 1600 UTC. And yeah, that's all I had for updates, like announcements. So anyone has any other news they would like to share with the team? Okay, then I think we can move to the topics. And the first one, an IRC. Yeah, I was going to add this, but I saw Brian already added it. So yeah, Brian, go ahead.
Yeah, so this just came up. I think Two's did a new release of the Two's library, and they made it Python requires greater than or equal to Python 3.8, and it broke a bunch of people running Python 3.8 jobs. So there's a link there to the message Ghanshyam sent out yesterday or early today. So the idea is with these runtimes, we're supposed to, so I put a link there to the release runtime so you can look for each OpenStack release. So the idea is that we support at least those, but we're not required to not support more if we want to. But I guess the main issue is just people are saying since they're not running Python 3.8 jobs, then we shouldn't say we support Python 3.8, but we can run Python 3.8 jobs if we want to. So what it's coming down to is that we're going to try to have better coordination among the libraries in particular about moving the Python requires. So just something to be aware of. So don't put up patches making the Python requires greater than or equal to Python 3.8 right now. I think we in Cinder are just doing 3.9 and 3.10 tests at the moment. So we don't have to add a 3.8 job, but I guess we could if we want to. And I guess that's, yeah, so that was it. Just, so anyway, so if you see one of those patches come around, because every so often people just post patches like that, don't approve it, please. That's what I'm saying.
Okay, and I think the next one is also kind of related.
Yeah, so yeah, thanks. So we need to add, Eric actually noticed this, that we weren't running Python 3.10. So that there's a test template that automatically runs the correct unit test jobs, but for our functional jobs, we have to maintain that ourselves. So we weren't running functional Python 3.10 jobs in all our deliverable repos. So we've got some patches up. Some have merged, like the Cinder one, I'm pretty sure is merged, but there are a couple that are still open. So if people could please take a look at those. They're all passing, so it'd be a quick approval.
I had a question about the RBD iSCSI client, or I think there's a project for RBD iSCSI.
Right.
So there we are still using a 3.8 job, and you mentioned in the commit message that it is an independent release cycle and it might be dependent on 3.8. So when would be a good time to remove that? Because I think eventually we will move there to 3.9 only.
That I guess we'll have to figure out. I think it's probably when we have to use some kind of feature that's not available in 3.8 is when we'd want to take care of that. But to be to step back a bit, we have never released from that repo yet because we haven't been able to get the CI jobs were running at one point, and then something broke them, and now they're not. So we do need, I think. So it doesn't block merges into the repo, but we sort of had this informal agreement that until we were able to run the Tempest job, I think it's defined in Cinder Tempest plugin, although I'm not sure, that we wouldn't release. So we do need to spend a little time looking at that. So to answer your question, so we would want to at least do a release that supports Python 3.8 before we think about removing it, I think, because the RBD iSCSI client, it's a pretty straightforward library. So I don't know what I'm saying. Anyway, we want to make sure it's usable by, everybody.
Yeah, my concern basically was like right now I think requirement team is spinning towards to an older version to pass the gates, but when they move to the new version again, like in all the projects we are switching to 3.9 and 3.10, will this job break again? The 3.8.1 we are using there.
Well, yeah, eventually it will. I mean, I think right now you have to run 3.8 jobs on Focal. And then 3.9 and 3.10 are running on Jammy. So it's so as long as the Focal nodes are supported by the infrastructure team, we'll be okay. Otherwise, we'd have to either find a different distro that has. So what I learned yesterday is the way that the so there's a Python requires setting that you can put in Zool when you define a job. But what that does is it doesn't install. Well, it sort of does. It depends on the distro. So if there's a distro package for that Python, it will install it. Otherwise, it doesn't, and then your job fails. Unless there's a top setting that can make your job pass anyway by mistake, but we don't do that. So for our case, it would fail. So we either find a different distribution that has the Python we need, or we could write some playbook that would actually install either PyEnv or try to install Python from scratch, which I don't know how well that would work. So the way the OpenStack, yeah, Pete's on it. Yeah, you want to use something that's ready to go, right? So we probably, let's not even go down that path. So anyway, so that's basically what's going on. So as long as Focal nodes are supported, we're cool to run anything we want on Python 3.8. But you're right, eventually we won't have the infrastructure to do that. So at that, sorry, I will shut up in a second. So that's why I'm sort of stressing we need to get some focus back to trying to get this job to pass so we can do a release. Because we want to have a release that at least that we know works on Python 3.8. So if we do hit this in like 6 months or so, where there's no more 3.8 support in the gate, we can just make the change, and then people who are stuck with Python 3.8 can use the released library. So, I mean, I think people aren't totally screwed because Walt had done a release, so it's available in PyPy. I believe. So you can get the RBDI SCSI client if you want. But we wanted to hook it into the OpenStack, release infrastructure to make things easier going forward. So I think that's why people haven't been screaming about this, like where the heck's the release, except the release team occasionally notices that it hasn't been released yet and sends a little nasty email. Because it's available. So
okay, yeah.
And I'm not saying you have to do that. I'm just saying the collective we. Maybe we can talk about it at the mid-cycle and sort of divvy out some tasks to get this solved. But the basic infrastructure is there. I think the job just wasn't passing. But I'll take the action item for the mid-cycle to at least find where everything is and what's happening. And then we'll have something to look at to decide who's going to do what to get this thing fixed. So I guess a better action item myself.
Okay, can I delete the pad as well? Yeah, that would be great. Another thing I noticed, like your Cinder client patch for this functional test, this depends on the tox4 changes. So that hasn't been approved yet. So I pasted the link so anyone can take a look.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah,
Okay.
I
Yeah,
think
maybe I based the patch. That was dumb. Yeah, we should decide what we want to do about that. Whether we just want to pin it to 3 for now, or I guess that's right. The Tox4 patch has this weird. Maybe we should pin it for 3 for antelope. If you look at that Tox patch, there's this really weird thing I do where I like change the name of the requirements file because I couldn't figure out. Somehow the installation process under Tox4 is different than under Tox3. And under Tox3, we could get away with some stuff that's sort of being enforced in Tox4. Because the requirements file for cinderlib is a little weird because cinderlib, the way we actually test it is you should just need Cinder and maybe OS brick. So you just need Cinder and OS brick, and then everything should be there. And it's just a library that allows you to use the drivers without having the whole Cinder infrastructure. So the requirements files that are mainly for people installing cinderlib from PyPy so that they get Cinder and OS brick. We can't actually put that in the requirements file because we're not allowed to have Cinder as a requirement in OpenStack because it's not a library, I think is the reason. So anyway, so we got to figure something out. So it's either someone has to figure out what the installation situation is with Tox4. And when I did that patch was, I don't know, maybe Tox 4.1 something, and now they're at like 4.16, I think. So it could be that everything's fine. I just don't know. And I haven't had time to go back and mess with it.
So, and I think you were explaining for cinderlib, and I was pointing to the Cinder client patch. But yeah, for this, but even for cinderlib also, we will need to, I think.
Okay, so cinderlib. Okay. So I'm sorry, I was okay. Okay, so the Cinder client. I see.
The version is 4.4.1, which
Oh,
you will
right.
post
Okay.
at that point.
Oh, that one should be fine then. Sorry. Sorry. I'm completely okay. Right. So okay. So the is for to get the Python 10 job into Cinder client, we need the Tox4 change. Gotcha. Okay,
Yeah,
that's fine.
Yeah, I think the cinderlib discussion is also useful because we need to decide on that. So yeah, got some context there as well. So for cinderlib, we don't want Tox4 as of now.
Tell you what I'll do. I'll see if I can get the Tox4 to work without having to do crazy changes. And if I can do that, I'll put the patch up. Otherwise, I'll put up a patch to pin Tox to 3 for the antelope Cinder client. I mean, not Cinder client, cinderlib.
Okay. Yeah, so here's the cinderlib patch for Tox4. And I think Tox4 shouldn't affect any deployment related scenarios. It's just like helps us to, run the tests manually and also pass the gate. So that was the main problem we had. Like gate was failing a lot when we started with Tox4 initially. Right now it seems in a stable state. So think it shouldn't affect the cinderlib antelope release. Okay, Brian, should we move to the next topic? It is also by you, related to cinderlib release.
Yeah, sorry, that's why I was sort of confused. So anyway, cinderlib's a cycle trailing release. So master and cinderlib is still antelope, whereas master for us is bobcat. So the main thing is that we need to merge this patch, especially if we start to make the database changes that we want to do before milestone 1, just so that we don't have to deal with breakages. So what this does is this just makes cinderlib use, so cinderlib always uses the latest version of, well, not the latest version, well, it uses Cinder and OS Brick directly from Git. So it's set up to do master while everybody's doing antelope development. But now that we've moved on to Bobcat, cinderlib has to be using the antelope Cinder, the antelope stable antelope branch of Brick and Cinder. So that's what this patch does. So it would be good to just get it out of the way before stuff starts breaking.
Does cinderlib ask for a specific tag of those repos, or is it always use master?
No, it always uses the head, right?
Oh,
And I guess the idea was so that we can catch. Yeah,
that seems dangerous.
it sort of is, except that right, it's sensitive to changes in those. So the problem we've got, like in Cinder, is that if we change something in OS Brick, the Cinder jobs actually use the last release brick, not the current head of Brick. So it's possible to do something stupid in Brick and then not find out until after a release that we've broken Cinder. And I forget, there's a good reason why we do it that way, but I can't remember what it is. It's possible we should have another job that uses the current head. Just, I guess the idea is that the OS Brick jobs should be, I don't know. We need to look at that because it has happened occasionally. I think the idea is that in OS Brick, you would be running the jobs that would check against Cinder Master to make sure you haven't done anything stupid before you merge. But there have been cases where that hasn't quite worked out. But for the most part, it does. And I guess that's why we've just sort of stumbled along doing that.
It would make sense that we would have a job in some job in Cinder to test against the released version of OS Brick to make sure that the changes we're doing in Cinder aren't breaking that compatibility. But also, there should be a job that tests the latest that's in OS Brick as well to make sure that we don't have a future release problem that we're about to that we don't know about until we do the release of OS Brick. And we're relying on the OS Brick patches to test all of that, which I guess is okay, but not as thorough as should be the case.
Yeah, I set up these jobs in Glance. They were called tips jobs. I can't remember why, but they checked against the current Oslo. So it was like any of the key libraries that we consume, it checked to make sure that we were still, if you used the latest out of master instead of the latest release, that things would still work. And that's probably what we should do here. Except the reason why I haven't proposed doing that is I later learned that the jobs I put together are completely screwed up. And they don't they run, but they don't actually test what I thought they were testing. And so they need to be completely redone. But anyway, so we are in this kind of little weird, precarious point. So that's another reason why it's good to keep the cinderlib gates moving, because it might discover some kind of incompatibility between Cinder and OS Brick.
Yeah, and cinderlib as well, right?
Yeah.
Do we have any examples of usage of cinderlib external to us anywhere?
I think so there's this Ember CSI thing for Kubernetes that consumes cinderlib. And then what was that? There's another project. I can't remember what it's called right now. There's some kind of cloud. It's got cloud in the name, right? But I can't remember what it is that consumes cinderlib too. But I don't know how close those Kubernetes guys seem to like stay up to date on everything.
Bleeding edge. Yeah, they're bleeding edge.
So, but I don't get the impression. I think we'd be hearing more complaints about slow releases. Either that or, cinderlib only has to move as fast as Cinder does, I guess, because if Cinder doesn't change, then it doesn't either. So yeah. Anyway, and there's a cycle trailing. So cinderlib's released a cycle trailing, and it's got to be done by the end of May. But it's the antelope release. So if we do stuff in Cinder to get the database in a different shape, we don't have to get that fixed in cinderlib by May. We just have to get that fixed in cinderlib 6 months after May. And that's all for me.
So for cinderlib, like when the same cycle is going on for Cinder OS Brick and cinderlib, like antelope was ongoing, then it was really good. Like cinderlib relies on the master of Cinder and OS Brick, but suddenly when these projects get released, would there be a mechanism to just switch to? I mean, you made the changes in the job to switch to the tagged version, stable 2023.1. I was just thinking it could be. Yeah, I think this is the only way to do it, because
yes, I thought about trying to automate it, but it's best to really have a human review this, because the other thing we got to do in cinderlib is the testing templates are set up for the OpenStack release cycle. So the requirements, the upper constraints, and all switch. And cinderlib hasn't switched yet. So we have to maintain the tests manually in cinderlib. And so the disadvantage of that is that, right, we've got to make sure we're doing Python 3.9 and 3.10 now, because that's not in cinderlib now, but the next time. But anyway, I think we need to sort of continue to do it by hand until we've only done it like 3 times. So it's, we don't have a lot of experience on what the changes are that you need to make. But that might be a reason to switch to Nox, because then all the stuff is done in Python instead of in Tox configuration. So it might be easier or more insane. I don't know which. Anyway.
yeah, I agree that someone should look at the changes, and I mean, it would avoid any failure scenarios in automation. I was just concerned regarding the changes, like now we override checkout each job in cinderlib to 2023.1, and then after cinderlib release, we again remove all those tags. So yeah, there's some kind of manual work that right now Brian is doing, and I don't feel really good about all the changes that we make just every 6 months for cinderlib. I think we didn't used to do it before, but when we transitioned from Python,
it was dropping Python 3.6 that revealed all this stuff was broken. So it was like those tips jobs I was talking about for Glance. I didn't realize they were not actually testing the right stuff because everything seemed to be working fine. But it was by luck, not by actual good design. And that's what happened with cinderlib. Was once people started dropping 3.6, it started breaking stuff in cinderlib that shouldn't have been broken yet. And that's when we realized, okay, the upper constraints is the wrong one, requirements is the wrong one. It was kind of crazy. I'll put a link in the because I should not be the only one who knows how to do this. So I've written up a document that explains this, and actually the document's pretty good because every 6 months I completely forget. So I just followed the steps to do it, and it does seem to work. But since I wrote it, you never know if it makes sense to normal people. So I'll put a link in the Etherpad as soon as I find it, and then you can look if you're interested in that kind of thing. It's kind of fun from the standpoint that it's not that bad. So you learn some Zool, you learn some talks, but you don't have to get too crazy. Just enough to be dangerous, but it seems to be working.
Yeah, the document is pretty good. I haven't tried it, but during the review, it was very verbose and explains all the steps carefully. So
Yeah, and I don't know. So, and if somebody wants to like put up a patch for the docs, I put it in the "so you want to contribute" document, but maybe it should be in its own thing. I don't know. But anyway, let me give you the link.
okay, so that's all the topics we had for today. We can start with open discussion. We have 9 minutes. So anyone would like to discuss a topic they haven't wrote down on the Etherpad and just want to discuss it on the go. So we have 2 patches in review request. Just making sure people observe it. So yeah, when you get time, you can. Yes, Sophia, were trying to say something.
Sorry. No, just I was going to summarize why my patch is on the review request. Yeah. Okay. So it's a fix for fixing restoring RBD backups to a non-RBD volume types. The fix is kind of simple. It shouldn't be that hard to review. In the second bullet point, there is the CI results that shows that the restore tempest test passed. And in case you need anything, or I can like do a demonstration, sharing a screen or something. I can do that as well. Yeah, that's only. That's it. Yep.
So I was reviewing that patch and again got distracted by something. But yeah, at at looking at the Tempest logs, I saw like LVM volume being created and it was attached. So I mean the Tempest test is passing, but in the logs we can see that we are creating a LVM volume, not a RBD volume, to restore it. So I will finish the whole log sequence, but I think the Tempest job runs pretty fine. I mean, it's doing the right thing with the backup and the volume being created. So it was a self backup and LVM volume.
Thank you, Rajat.
Yeah, I have a feeling that I looked at this page before, but I was not on CC. Maybe I'm just confusing it with something else.
Yes, sorry. No, the problem with I start to fix this problem a while ago, but I dropped completely the first patch because the first patch I was trying to do a refactor of the code and fixing this issue, and I decided to only fix in the issue first and then do the refactoring and adding documentation, because otherwise I got too confused and a lot of things was going on. So the new patch only focus on fixing the problem. It's only that.
I support that. That's fine. Feel free to present the second half with the refactoring and everything. I'll be happy to look at it.
That would be awesome. Thank you, Pete.
Although I'm not on core, not yet at least. But
well, any reviews are welcome.
Okay.
Thanks.
We have 4 more minutes if anyone would like to discuss anything. So, Sophia, would you also like to conduct the bug meeting here?
Sure. We only have 2 bugs for the bug meeting today. I can share a screen with the Launchpad website, or as you like.
That should be good. I can just stop the recording for the meeting.